This is the last video on forming the pond, and basically what we're going to form here is the circular deck. And of course, we're going to need to make sure that it's thick enough. A lot of times you want it to be at least 4 inches, and I believe that's what we're doing here, 4.5 inches thick. And of course, then you'll need to install the rebar. Just grab a straight edge or a level across to make sure that the decking is going to be flat, and if you want you can always slope it away. If it's a larger decking, it can slope in a direction where it's not going to accumulate water. This particular deck is only going to be about 18 inches, 20 inches wide, and I'm going to make it level. It will be perfectly flat. It won't really be a big problem for water accumulating, obviously. And plus that, if it is level and you make everything flat, water shouldn't accumulate on it anyway. It should drain off in one direction or the other. What we used was a roller and a paintbrush and some cooking oil. You've got to coat the forms with cooking oil, otherwise you are going to end up with potholes. Let me just show you a picture in the next slide of what one of these potholes will look like. As you can see in this picture, there is a chunk missing from the kind of upper right hand section of the picture here. It's towards the right below the rim of the pond decking, and there's a good chance there wasn't enough oil on the wood. It wasn't coated enough, so you've got to make sure that the wood is coated sufficiently. And by that, I don't care. I don't think you could overcoat this, by the way. You put enough oil on there, then the concrete's just not going to stick. You don't put enough oil on there, then you're going to end up with stuff like that. And if you don't know how to fix stuff like that, you really could end up with a big problem while you're stripping your forms and trying to finish the concrete. And here are just a few more pictures of the pond, different areas. This particular picture actually has the concrete pump hose there. We used a concrete pump to pump the concrete to the back. Now, don't forget, if you are going to use a concrete pump, that there could be charges if you're more than 200 feet away from an area where they can pump the concrete. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to check with a local concrete pumper in your area for more information. Now, I didn't really know much about building ponds, so I just called the concrete manufacturer, my local ready mix company, and told them what I was doing. I said, hey, I'm building a pond. It's going to be kind of like a pool. I'd like a colored concrete. Do you have any suggestions? And the guy said, yeah. He goes, I know exactly what kind of mix you want. You'll just have to pick the color out. And he says, we would like to add fiberglass to it. And the fiberglass actually just provides additional reinforcement, kind of like additional rebar in the mix. And and again, if you have any questions for the concrete company, hey, feel free to ask. They're there to help. This is what these people do all the time, so don't be afraid to ask them for their help. And the same thing with a concrete pump, you know. Now, there is one more thing that is crucial, and you really don't want to have a real wet or sloppy mix of concrete. And you need to make the manufacturer understand that it can't be too wet, or it's going to ooze out of all of these spots, you know. And actually, when the guy brought the concrete, it was a little too wet, and I had to deal with it. And what I ended up with was pouring the concrete on the bottom. The concrete had overfilled the bottom area. So the inside circle of the pond, the very bottom of the pond, is about an inch higher than what it originally should have been, because the concrete was so wet it overflowed into that area. And of course, it's all weight. As you're pumping the other concrete into the other areas, it wants to come into these areas. It's just basic science. So, and of course you can't have too dry of a mix, you know, otherwise you're going to have problems pouring the pond. Now, another thing you could use is a concrete vibrator. I didn't use it, and obviously I didn't need it. You didn't see any spots there. But if this was something that you feel that you might need, then go for it. With a pea gravel mix, most of the time for something like this, you're not going to need it, and I wasn't really worried about it. And again, these are questions you could ask the concrete manufacturer about, or even a local contractor in your area.